Now entering the ring is our Class 1 Black Cross Crossbred Market Beef in our FFA show. There are 3 entries.
And we start off with a really nice class, and honestly, there's a lot of give and take, and there's a little bit of challenge in here because each one of these steers, where they're good, I think they're really good, and you can find a class advantage for each one of these cattle that we have out here. And so I think all the way down the line, these 3 cattle are good. They're just a little bit different. The one that's going to go ahead and start off for me, this calf's look and his balance and his structure is the best in here. And whenever you study these cattle from the side, that is one sharp looking rig up front that is long necked, and he ties his neck right onto the top of his shoulder. I love his rib and his body type and just the depth and softness that he's got there to his center body. And whenever you get these cattle in motion, he is the most attractive in the build of his skeleton. And where I like him is he maintains his look of balance that he's got at the stand the best whenever we get him on the lead. Get up on top of him. And what makes this class tough and what makes a little challenge lining these 3 up is I wish he had just a shot more muscle. He's not just the stoutest one that I've ever seen. Whenever he comes right out of the back of his shoulder, he could be just a little square there, and you could stout him up just a little bit from behind right there through the center and lower part of his quarter. But still, whenever you add up the good pieces, for me, I thought he had the most of it. His balance and his look and his structure allows him to go ahead and lead us off. Now the steer that's coming out here in second, his advantage out here is he does have just a shot more muscle, especially you go in and get your hands on that guy over his rib and right to the edge of his loin, and his stoutness right through the center and lower part of his quarter is more impressive than the calf that goes out right ahead of him. And I sure like that, and I think that's what makes this class have a little challenge to it. But whenever you step off to the side of him, he's a little plainer up front. From a structure standpoint, this calf is the straightest in the angle of his shoulder. He's probably the most forward in the angle of his knee, and you get right in behind him, he's got just a bit too much swelling and coarseness in his hop joint, and I'd like to clean that up. And whenever he gets out and goes, he just doesn't go with the same kind of flexibility and cushion to his lower joint work as really the cattle that sit on either side of him. So I like him from a composition and muscle standpoint. He's right on, and you've done a great job feeding him in regard to his finish, and he is smooth as glass whenever you get your hands on that guy. We just need to change him up from a structure and balance standpoint. The steer that we're going to round out our class with, this guy's got a real easy feed and fat steer look to him. He's moderate, he's huge bodied. I do like this steer's joint work and structure just a little bit better than the calf that goes right out ahead of him. For me, he wants to get just a bit too plain from the profile. He's a little plainer headed, he's a little deeper chested, he gets too off behind his shoulder and too round out of his hip, and whenever you get right in behind him, he could probably use just a shot more dimension right through the center and lower part of his quarter and stifle as well. So a few things just from a balance and look standpoint that we could change in him, and maybe stouten him up from a muscularity standpoint as well. But I like his body and I like his structure, but a good class of them there. Those young people did a great job on a great start off to our market steer show this morning. If you would, pay them off and put your hands together for them if they work their way out.
In our Class 1 Black Cross class, first place goes to Leaf Kavanaugh. Second goes to Miranda Maines. And third, Mason Andretti. Now we'll bring in our Class 2 Black Cross Crossbred Market Beef for our FFA show. We have 3 entries.
Yep. She got it. Good job. Good job.
And I think all three of these cattle you can kind of lump in the same category whenever you're talking about cattle that are right at an appropriate market weight and incredibly good in terms of the finish and the handle quality that they've got. And I think there's really some subtle differences that sort them. And really, all three of them, you could maybe change them up from a structure standpoint just a little bit. So I think you got to set that aside. And standing still, I really like the calf that's going to go ahead and lead off. He is very, very dominant out here from a power and mass standpoint. Get right up on top of him. He has got a big, bold rib cage in him. He has the most mass. He's got the most dimension working down the top side of his skeleton and out of his hip. And also, whenever you get off to the side of these cattle, he's the one that's the best in regard to his look and his balance and his proportionality as well. Like we said, we could change all of them just a little bit from a structure standpoint. Whenever we get him in motion, I'd like to see him get out and go with just a little more flexibility to his hock and his rear ankle. But as we pick on the other two that are coming in behind him, we can maybe change some structure things on them too. So that becomes a wash, and that's the good looking one that's got the most dimension, and he's packing the most heat down his back and out of his hip. Now the calf that's coming out here in second, I like this one quite a bit as well. Whenever you go in and get your hands on this guy, he is ultra smooth and very uniform in his degree of finish over his 12th, 13th. I love that about that steer. He's got more dimension, he's got more muscle than the one that's coming right in behind him. Step off to the side of that guy, he's just a little plainer up front for me. That steer's just a little too straight in the angle of his shoulder, and he'll come over at his knee just a little bit whenever you study him from the side. And just like our class winner, he maybe comes up just a little short in his stride from behind, so we could change a few of those things about him in terms of his structure and his skeleton off both ends, and doesn't have the same kind of look and doesn't match the extra power like we see in our class winner this year that's coming out here in third. I'd say probably just as far as being right on target, 12 o'clock market readiness, and as uniform as any of them out here in regard to his degree of finish. I think he's really impressive from that standpoint. That looks like a real easy feeding, kind of a fast steer. I like all those things about him. For me, he is the frailest featured one and the frailest in his bone work. And you get right in behind this lineup, he's also the lightest muscle calf that we've got out here. You get down his back, he's the plainest in his shape over his rib. He's the plainest in his shape through his lower quarter and stifle. And just like the one that goes out ahead of him, we could probably knock him back a little bit in the angle of his shoulder as well. But good trio of cattle. All of them have been fed very, very well. Those are three good market steers with some good differences in between them. Even though that this calf might be rounding out our class, that is still not a bad one, I guarantee you that. If you would put your hands together for these young people, they did a great job.
In our Class 2 Black Cross Crossbred Market Beef, first place went to Jake Cutchin from Livermore FFA. Second went to Ryder Martin. And third went to Ryder Martin. Congratulations. Now we'll be bringing back our first and second calves to pick our Grand Champion and Reserve Grand Champion FFA Market calves.
Thought a really good pair of classes to work through here in our FFA Black Cross division. If you would, around ringside, let's congratulate our young people that were first and second in those two classes. Well, as we were working through those classes, I think a lot of good cattle represented here in this division, and we bring our class winners back out that are in the front of the line and the 2 seconds that are in back behind him, and really some good discussion, really some good differences between the cattle. We started off that first class with the lightest weight calf that we've got out here, and I thought just as far as his look and his design and his structure, that's kind of where I want to be on that. Whenever you look at him from the side, he's got a great look. Whenever you get this steer in motion, he's really good in his feet and leg structure, and I really like that about him. No, we talked about him in class. He could be just a little bit stouter in where he ranks in muscle in this lineup. I'd say of the four that we've got out here, he's probably 4 out of 4 in regard to muscle, and I wish he had just a little bit more to him. Once you went in and got your hands on him over his rib, and whenever you got him behind him, he could use just a little stouter hip in him. But from the side, I really like that calf in regard to his look and his design and his balance. Now the steer that comes out of that second class, there was a good pair of them that we had out in that second class, and I thought just as far as muscle, boldness, dimension, and stoutness all the way through, those two cattle were very impressive. And whenever you back off to the side of this steer, he's still got a nice look to him. good in his next set. I like his body, I like his rib, and I like his dimension. And whenever you get up on top of him, I thought in that class he was very impressive. And you get him out here and compare him to our other class winner, he's definitely got more horsepower working down his back. He's definitely the stoutest one whenever you study him from a muscle standpoint. And so I think what makes it tough is whenever you get him in motion, we talked about maybe freeing him up just a bit in his hock and his rear ankle. And I'd like, if I'm going to criticize that steer, Nate, and say, hey, where's he come short of just being perfect? It probably isn't structure, and we need to get him out and see him just a little bit sounder, just like all three of them were there in that class. But I thought from a muscle and dimension standpoint, this is kind of where I want to be as far as just composition. That steer is very muscular. He's very appropriately finished. I like him from a weight standpoint, where he's sitting at right there. And so I think that calf has a lot of good to offer. And like we talked about our seconds in each one of those particular classes, I thought a good pair of them that represent good cattle that come back out here and follow up our class winners very, very nicely. So for me, there's probably a pair of them that fit together just a little bit better where I want to be in terms of stoutness and muscularity. And for me, that's a big priority whenever we're talking about market cattle. We've got to have them with power. We've got to have them with boldness and stoutness and appropriateness in terms of their degree of finish and market readiness. And I think there's a pair of them that do that to just a little higher degree. Good cattle, all four of them. These young people have done a phenomenal job getting these cattle taken care of, fed, and presented out here. If you would, around ringside, let's give them a big congratulations. Put your hands together for them. I'll go ahead and set this down, and we'll select your champion and reserve here in this division.
Champion FFA Market Steer goes to Jake Cutchin. Reserve champion goes to Ryder Martin.